On this episode, we talk about information addiction. I put one of my best friends in the artist spotlight, and we talk about what to do if you have multiple writing interests. Hey everybody, and welcome to Finish Friday, the show that helps more creative people change more lives. I am your host, Todd B. from Tennessee, and I created this show because on a scale of 1 to getting songs from the Hamilton soundtrack out of your head, creating things is hard, and finishing those things is even harder. Y'all, I'm feeling good today. Like I got my Spider-Man cup going on. I got this beard balm. When they make videos that you can smell, like, you will be so pleasantly involved right now in the smell that's going on in my face. Otherwise, man, we got some significant changes going to toddbryson.com. And I think like most people hear that and they're like, oh, a website redesign. It's not that. And so that's why I'm not saying like, oh, big changes. It's significant changes as far as like setting myself up for the future and making better stuff for you guys. I could not be more excited. If you're on the email list, hopefully you filled out my survey earlier this week. That's going to help guide some of the decisions I made. If you're not on my email list, what are you doing? I'm going to link you up down below and to the sides. That's all that's going on in my world for now. Let's get into today's topic. You don't have an information problem. Like, I want to be clear about that up front, because what we're living in right now is the time of the most connected humans ever. And I think for us as artists, like, we sit and we get into our career and we think that we need to know more or to put certain pieces together in order to move forward. And a lot of times that's not necessarily true. Like when we're children, I was listening to Jim Rohn earlier this week. He said, when you're in school, you got to learn everything you can. You can discard what you don't need later, but when you're in your school, you got to know everything you can. But I think once you get into adulthood and start to try and build a career, you don't need every piece of information. Guys, we get addicted to this stuff because it comes into our feeds and our social networks and our email inboxes every day. More information, more information, more information. The new thing that you must not know in order to fail. And it's like, I get confused with all of that because from my own experience, I listened to podcasts all the time, nonstop for a year. And then I looked up after that year and I was like, I'm not any richer. I'm not any more successful. And I don't really feel any smarter because I don't remember any of the things I listened to. And so this week, I want to challenge you. I want to encourage you to balance your information with action. Whenever you take action on the information, you need new information to solve those new problems. That's what happens. Otherwise, you get caught up in kind of this endless cycle of information. So this week, that's what I want you to keep in mind. Forget all the information and balance it with action. My iPad just died. Like right now. It just died when I needed it the most. That's what I get for not charging it often enough. But today's question of the day, I'll remember and paraphrase the best I can, comes from Emil. And you guys ask a question anytime, of course, down below in the comments, to me on Twitter at Todd Bryson, on email todd@toddbryson.com. Anytime you want to ask a question, I will gladly take a shot at them. Emil, I don't know why I'm looking here because this is dead, but Emil wants to know, he has a blog that's focused around self-development. But he also has other interests such as poetry and fiction and short stories and that kind of thing. He wants to know what he could kind of do with those two separate interests and how specifically he can get feedback on his fiction stuff without kind of confusing people and having them both out there. Emil, feel free to correct anything I've said down below. That's the best that I remember. So here's my thing. I think a lot of us actually get into writing because we want to write novels. I mean, that's why I started. Like, you know, I'm a huge fan of NaNoWriMo, and that's because I wanted to write a fiction novel. And I haven't completely written that out, but for this phase of my life, honestly, you know, it's funny. One day, I was probably about 9 months into to this thing that we're doing right now, and I was just writing, hadn't started the show yet, and I was still trying to write a novel too. So I was on, like, I had written a novel, I had written a sequel, I was shopping those things out, I was writing another manuscript, and Kate, my wife, walks up to me and she's like looking at my follower count on the nonfiction stuff. She's like, "Hey babe, this is you, like, this is a big deal, right? You're getting some attention here, right?" And I was like, yeah, but I got to write this story about, this fiction story. I'm really into this right now. She said, "Babe, why don't you focus on what's working the best right now, and then you could come back to the other stuff later." And I had to think about that for a while. I was like, you know what? She's right. Like, why am I still messing around trying to go both different directions when I could focus on one thing and make a ton of progress there and then try and decide if I want to do something else? So Emil, for me, it was literally shut out everything else. Shut out the fiction. I love writing fiction, and I haven't written fiction in 2 years. Why? Because right now is the time for me to write this thing, this personal development thing, this creativity thing, because that's what I'm passionate about. That's the track I'm on, and I can't spend any time trying to write fiction stuff as well. Now, in 10 years, when I feel like I'm established and that might knock at my door again, of course, that's not a problem. But until you've reached kind of that like the level that you want to reach, or if you feel one pulling you more than the other, I would go in that direction. It's really tough to do two things at once. You can do it, and if you're going to do that, I would honestly, write under a pseudonym. Fiction writers do that all the time. Artists do that all the time. Fake name. It's basically a rite of passage in the music industry. But you can put those stuff in the other channels. But honestly, my advice, my man, focus on one thing, because you can always start with something else later. Today's artist spotlight falls on one of my best friends in the world, Declan Wilson. Declan is my man over at mysherpa.com. I think I said that right. And he's just a stand-up guy, incredible guy. He launched a course this week, which is why I'm trying to give him a little bit of attention. So you guys go over there and give him some love. I'll have the link down below. Just a stand-up guy. So and I'll put this in a little bit of a framework before I get you out of here, so you know that we have a deep connection. When I got in touch with Declan a year and a half ago or so, I was like, "Yo, do you want to guest blog on the site? Do you want to write something?" He's like, "Oh, sure, yeah." And that was the only conversation we have. The guest post he submits to me is about the Muppets. Instant best friend. And he and I have been in touch probably every week, every other day, ever since then. And it reminds me, Declan, if you're watching this, of just how important friendships are. And I think men, a lot of times, we get isolated in our own career, and we're doing our own thing, and we miss out on a lot because we don't have those solid friendship relationships with other males. And Declan really fills a role in that for me. I love you, brother. So that's about it for me. If you have any questions, of course, submit them down below. Ask the audience. I almost forgot. Did you catch that? I was going off on another thing. Ask the audience. I've got my Spider-Man cup here, and I want to know, coffee, tea, or otherwise? Ask the audience, coffee, tea, or otherwise. Put it down in the comments below. You guys don't forget to give this one a thumbs up. My last week's video had more reach than I expected, and I think it's because of the likes that you guys are hitting down below. So thank you so much. Keep that up. Again, I am Todd B from Tennessee, and I will talk with you soon.